Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Chris Starcheski and Dean Packard coming at you live and navigating leadership's end of year leadership chat. It's been a while since I've been on here, but I've been talking to that guy quite a bit. Dean, how are you?
Hey, Chris, I'm outstanding. Thanks so much for joining me. And we have an opportunity here. Just let's kind of come together and just talk about our roadmaps, man, because our roadmaps are looking to change. I think both of us are spending our last day right now in our Dudley Charlton Regional School District, and we've both had long careers here and long careers in education, and opportunities have come up for us to start looking at other venues, man. And that's a while ago I did a show about capacity, and I put it out there, and making that shift and making that pivot in a career when you're pretty well established is never easy, brother. And we're both looking at those new doors that we're going to be opening, man. So it's great to see you. Unlock the Middle has been all about us getting a little bit better, finding personalities from across the country. We brought on Josh Tovar. Josh Tovar has been a Iron Man for us, man. And I know he'd love to be with us right now, but he's in the middle of interviews and taking care of closing up his school. And I know I'll talk to him later on tonight, but it's great to catch back up with you, my friend. And, this is what we decided to start about 2.5 years ago, if you remember.
Yeah, we began with a conversation during that pandemic that was driving us to say, how do we build our own capacity and stay connected with others and learn, as we're struggling to keep up with the new environment that we were in. And here we are with a great platform, great opportunity. Like you said, though, we are continuing on in the field of education, but we're moving on to different pastures, I guess. You're moving up to a high school after being in the middle for many, many years. I'm moving over to a new middle school after being here for, over half a decade, I guess. And, we're taking our skills and applying them and going to learn more. I'm pretty excited.
Well, those, the skills never change, the direction you go. We got in this business to empower people, to recognize people, and to really aspire individuals to step out of their comfort zone and do more and create student experiences for kids. And ultimately, that's what, this platform has been all about, because we've reached out to people all around the country. In fact, all around the world. We've had great personalities, man, and people who we call them the ripple effect people. And that's what I think is the most important and the most powerful aspect of leadership. And Chris, I'm looking back being in this district for 30 years, and 30 years is a long time to be able to give yourself an opportunity to grow, not only as a person but as a teacher, from being a coach to being an assistant principal, and now to being a principal for the last 16 years, in the last 20 in one building. So those things, you just don't find it in administration anymore. So when we talk about migrating from middle to high school, all I'm going to have is kids that are just a little bit older and perhaps a little bit wiser when it comes to choices and their own educational opportunities, man. And for you, I'm super happy for you, man. I'm proud of you, man. You've found a niche where you're going to be able to grow in your capacity as a middle level leader. And it's a resource rich area where you're going to have high level, high quality teaching. You're going to have the resources behind you to be able to get those kids those experiences, man. That, to me, that's real exciting.
It really is. So, in every door, I always talk to the kids about having keys on your ring, because you never know which locks can be unlocked and which doors.
No pun intended. Unlock the middle. That's why we started.
Absolutely. But, the idea here is, about not taking advantage of opportunity, but realizing when opportunity needs to be taken advantage of. So every year I close out my school year by, of course, like every other educator, looking out there at your goals and where you started, where you finished, how'd you do, right? But when I began in this role, I had done one-on-one interviews with every member of the staff here in our current school. And one of the questions was during that interview, what are you most impressed by about our school? Second question, what are you hoping to achieve? And the third question was, what is it that you hope to learn? And then there were a couple other questions in there. But as I went through those middle columns at the end of this year, I realized that a lot of what I began 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago now, was achieved. Some examples of that: we put a really highly effective student support team in place. We've adopted a new math curriculum, grades 6 through 8, across both of our schools. We've integrated in a new science curriculum. We strengthened our writing program, vertically articulating from fifth through eighth grade to prep the kids for the high school. We started to dabble in adjusting schedule. How do we bring in new and innovative activity ideas for kids? So as I was going down this list, which I use at the beginning of every year to help frame my focus, I realized, wow, we achieved a lot. There are a few things that are in progress, but there's nothing that's been attempted, and there's nothing that there weren't forward gains with. So I look back on this school year saying, this is a successful conclusion. And the decision for me to move on was related to seeing all of these things through and identifying we accomplished a lot together. So this team that's behind me is really better off now than they were at the beginning, not because of me, but because of their efforts and their focus on those areas that they said they wanted to achieve. So I'm really happy and proud of them, and it's time to move on and apply the skills and get that team firing at my new school, Grafton Middle School.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Chris. It's been a collaborative effort over the years to bring both Dudley Middle School and Charlton Middle School together. And I'll tell you, and I want to publicly say this, and I hope our teachers out there listen. Our schools are only as good as you are in the classroom. And Chris and I have both been blessed to have some amazing educators that work with us, not for us. They work with us. And they were able to drink the Kool-Aid about coming together and sharing ideas and sharing best practices and understanding that middle level adolescent growth is tricky, and there's no doubt about it. And actually getting kids to be able to learn and get to their access point of learning is never easy. And I don't care if you're at the elementary, middle, or high school, it's a skill set that is just absolutely phenomenal. And there are just too many people that I could thank for doing their job well and beyond the scope of just being a teacher. Because you know what? That's what makes Dudley Charlton so rich. And I'm actually looking back, like I said, over 30 years here. And I'm thinking I was a young guy when I started. I remember high school basketball coach and a teacher, briefcase. I had that shirt and tie on. And I just loved what I was doing. And from there, the path was just, it was laid out for me. And for all those people out there that are listening who are in education and they have that thought of being or the aspiration of being an instructional leader sometime, you can do it. You can accomplish anything you put your mind to. If you have that vision and that willingness and heart of a teacher to lead people and to be able to help people build their capacity, something you should think of. And, I'm not fearing going to the high school. Actually, I'm loving the opportunity because that's where I started. But my heart is forever going to be locked in the middle. And because these type of kids need love like you've never believed. That's what they look for. That's what they clamor for, that relationship part. And Josh Tovar says it all the time. You know what? Kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I'll take that anywhere you go in public education, or I don't even care if you're talking about the private workplace. Your customer needs to know that you're vested and that you care about them. And that's how you sell a product, man. And, and again, DCRSD, deep spot in my heart, man. And I know like anywhere else, there's a lot of financial struggles that are out there right now for school districts across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But I will say this, with the right people in the right places, this district will be absolutely golden. And I just know it will.
No, there's a rich history everywhere you go. But when the people are committed to that students first mentality, and we look at those core values about giving kids what they need and feeding the educators so that way their tummies are full and they can give the energy to the kids, we're in really, really good shape. So as I sit back and reflect on the past year, wondering what you are most proud of in terms of your accomplishment in your school and the career.
Yeah, well, school and career, two different things. But I'll say from
No,
the
just this year.
Yeah,
Just
the school level, man. I'll tell you what is that continued growth across district horizontally to ensure that we're giving an equitable product to all students in both towns. When you have a regional school district, you can't have a school doing something that another school's not doing. You got to make sure student experiences are aligned. You got to make sure that all students feel as though they're part of an overarching learning community, and that comes back to the efforts of the individual individuals that sit in the seats that you and I sit in, Chris. You and I could both say this has never been about us as leaders. It's been about us as a collective practice to
Yeah.
bring a group, and I call it like a huge basketball team. You're going to have 175 basketball players playing for you, man. And those are your teachers that are just drinking the Kool-Aid and understanding their why and their purpose. And when I reflect back on that, why and purpose are two words that we always preached. And I'll tell you, you can ask any teacher in any one of our buildings, they understand that. And I'll tell you, that's the beginning point of going from good to great. Now,
Agreed.
again, when you begin to strip resources and you begin to strip things away from the individuals who are selling the products, there are challenges that start to happen. And those challenges become real very quickly. You start having 24, 25, 26 kids in a class, God help you, because I'll tell you what, the quality of education will wane very quickly. We've been blessed here, utilizing 22, 20 in a class. Those are optimal class sizes as far as I'm concerned.
100%.
And we've always, and I give great shout out to our school committee who's always put the needs of kids and teachers at the forefront of the decisions that they make. And again, I'll tell you what, it's just, there are so many things here. And for me, it's just, as I sit here today, the last day in the school district, I'm sitting here doing some work, just finalizing. It's just surreal. It's just, you blink your eyes and 30 years goes by.
Yeah, it's immediate.
How about you?
There's so much to be proud of, with this place at Dudley Middle School over the past year. We accomplished some great curriculum initiatives. We're bringing in new science curriculum, right? We've got some rich and robust programming. I think one of the most powerful connectivity pieces that we had that bridged both middle schools beyond curriculum, beyond teaching and learning, was the 26 or 27 after-school activities that we created through that after-school outside of school time grant that we were able to procure, right?
Yeah.
We had an opportunity where we encouraged teachers to take a risk, to put themselves out there with an innovative idea. And then we offered these experiences up to kids, and there was a tremendous amount of participation, and it was a catalyst to help return from that pandemic kind of malaise of engagement beyond the school day, right? We saw a drop off in athletic participation. We saw a drop off in student dance attendance at the beginning of the year. We saw a drop off in club and activity participation. And through that innovative idea that the teachers brought in, everything from additional robotics and coding experiences at CMS to e-gaming to podcasting club and speech and debate, stitched together where kids learned how to crochet, cooking club over at CMS. All these different types of activities brought all students opportunities as opposed to the funneled activities that we typically had in the past. And we saw an increase in participation every day. It was fantastic. And that was all done by educators, be they teachers, paraprofessionals, or counselors. Every facet of our schools offered up these types of experiences for kids. And that, to me, is indicative of a healthy culture, a culture that believes in going a little bit beyond, but in recognizing that students first means we have to teach that whole child. And we've been hearing that for a long time. But we want kids to be engaged and invested so that way they can do well academically. We've got to feed their souls before they can eat up those academics in the texts.
Chris, let me ask you a question about school culture and the importance of it. And as you and I are making our exodus out the door, let's talk about how we were able to shape our teams in our schools to be able to understand, that those relationships matter. And I guess we focus on people. What issues do come up. But again, as in your words, you're always soft on people, hard on issues. And when you do that, what happens is people understand what the expectations are, and it becomes clear why good schools become great. And again, I'm not going to lie, and you can probably say this as well. I mean, there's a pinch in the field of education today. I mean, nobody's flocking anymore. We have spots to interview for. We only have 3 or 4 applicants at this point in time. I can tell you in the past, we've had 100 applicants for certain jobs when it comes up.
Yeah.
Just not people in the field anymore. However, We need to ensure that whether from the day one when we go to hire somebody, that they feel as though they're going to be part of a learning community that's going to be supportive, that is going to welcome them and help foster their individual growth, not only as a person, but as that teacher in the field. And great schools have those mechanisms in there. So talk a little bit about culture. You know, Chris, you and I have been around a long time. You can ask any of our teachers. That we can have room to agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, the school climate is the number one thing that makes schools run.
Yeah, everything starts with those relationships, Dean. It's not the relationship from me to the teacher or, you to your staff. It's the relationships, horizontally,
Yeah,
right? Teachers to the left and the right have to have the teacher in the middle. They've got to have their back. Everything from visibility in the hallway at arrival and dismissal to passing periods to popping in to check in when they've heard that, the lesson didn't go as planned, the pick me up conversation, right? We can't be just focused on ourselves, because when we're focused on ourselves, we close everybody else out, and, it becomes a silo mentality. I'm not talking about unlocked doors and pineapple charts on walls. I'm just talking about that real human connection. And education's about people first, right?
always has been.
So, the idea of hard on the issue, soft on the people, right? That applies everywhere. It applies to our discipline structure, right? We talk about restorative practices with kids. We can penalize the child and hope that the penalty gets them through. But the reality is that in this day and age, it requires a lot of learning, right? We have students who come into the school and don't understand what a two voice sounds like in the library versus an eight voice in the library. We have to teach the kids all these things. That's an example of restorative practices, as opposed to be going down the hall yelling, shh, right? Well, the kids could take it down from an 8 to a 6 and they shushed. I'm being silly with the example, but it goes back here to talking about giving kids everything that they need, giving the adults everything that they need. I'm a why not kind of guy, right? And by why not, I mean, if somebody comes in with an idea that makes sense for them and makes sense for kids, I'm all behind it. We'll find the money. We'll find the resources. We'll find the supports. But it has to make sense. It can't just be a willy-nilly, unrelated to curriculum, unrelated to teaching and learning, unrelated to the kids. We want to go ahead and be better by encouraging folks to have ideas and validate those ideas. And if their idea is a little bit off base, maybe we can talk about it and reshape it a bit to get us right on mission. But it's different than it was before. And guess what happens now? Now a new idea comes in, and now we're up here. And then a third idea. And we start reimagining what the experience can be. And that's how it begins. So culture and climate to me is about those relationships, supporting the idea, and really teaching the differences between what we expect versus what we don't want to tolerate.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to ask you this question for the people in Grafton that are about to welcome you as their new principal over there. What do you want them to know about Chris Starcheski? What would you like them? This is a great opportunity because we're going to tag Grafton High School, Grafton School District in this on this video, and this is just something from your voice to their ears.
Yeah, I think one of the best things, I kind of just summarized it a little while ago. I love the idea of reimagining, honoring tradition, right? You don't touch and break tradition, but we always want to think about how we can make a shift and make a stride forward. We'll honor the tried and true traditions. We'll honor the tried and true practices, and we'll never pull the rug out from underneath. But we always want to think about how we can be next level. How can that kid who has a B plus average in my class, how can I get them to the A? If I've got a child who's got, lacking attendance and they're showing up the first 25 days tardy to school, how do we recognize and celebrate after the interventions that this kid's only been tardy 5 or 6 times in the next 40 days, right? How do we identify these opportunities to celebrate? So that's a little bit about me without going into I love to fly fish. I love my family. I love to coach. I have 2 dogs and a third possibly on the way, with an adoption maybe coming that my wife filled
Don't
out an
do it.
application
Don't
for.
do it.
But this isn't about me. But now Bay Path is right up the street from you at Charlton Middle School. You're a graduate of Bay Path, so your face is known in the community. Your name is known in the community. What's something that they don't know about you that they're going to learn and that the audience today is going to hear for the first time?
Geez, I was in a national commercial with my wife and family. Remember that? Okay. Besides that,
I
I
can
will let.
share that screen. I have that
Oh,
video
don't share
saved.
that screen. That was fun. Okay, life insurance. I remember when that came up. No, listen, they're going to find out from me that I'm a head coach, and one of my greatest qualities is that I'm a listener. And Chris, I love what you talked about not changing tradition and things that are in place that really work well. But I can tell you, with any transitional element for any person in any position, the number one thing you do is you're on a walking tour. You're on a learning tour. You need to establish relationships with everybody you're going to work with. I don't care if it's front end personnel. I don't care if it's bus drivers. I don't care if it's cafeteria workers, teachers. You got to get to know them. You got to figure out what makes them tick and show them that you value who they are as a person first. And again, when you're starting to talk about culture, then you start to get a feel and a vibe, man, and you start celebrating the great things that are there. Change will happen over time when you talk about high quality teaching experiences and what that looks like. When you engage in those type of conversations with people who are teaching kids, they know those answers. They just may not always know how to apply them at a level that creates maximum efficiency for learning. Yep. And again, it becomes that epiphany moment when the head coach has that plan laid out and you see those systems in place. And all of a sudden you just start saying, hey, that really worked well. Or you start collaborating, man. I'll tell you, that is so good. But for me, I'll tell you, yeah, Chris, full circle, graduate of that school. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I said that when I talked about DCRSD. Being here for 30 years was a complete honor and a privilege. And it's a humbling opportunity when you are put at the disposal of 200 employees, 1,200 kids, and there's thousands of people that are expecting you to create a roadmap for excellence. And again, the greatest leaders that I've ever worked with in my life have a clear, defined roadmap and make decisions on the fly that are in the best interest of kids. Man, I just love working with people like that. I know my new superintendent up there, Kyle Brenner. I'm looking forward to working with him and his whole support staff. Again, these are times when we put the oars in the water and we row all together. And guess what happens? Just amazing things happen at schools. And it doesn't happen overnight. I can tell you right now, it's going to take some time. But at the end of the day, find the greatness in people. And what happens is you start to create ripples. And that is cool.
Yeah.
Hey, what's Josh Tovar saying? There's no IHOP up here, man. We're not down in Texas, Josh. Come on.
There are IHOPs around here, but
all right. Yeah, there's one in Shrewsbury, your old stomping ground. There's nothing in Dudley Charlton, that's for sure.
But as I sit down and think about what you just said, and I think about the idea of the compass, right? And one of our good friends, Bill Chaplin, we've got some medallions on our desk. A leader knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way is the basic message, right? Our job is to set that course and be able to identify opportunities to take an off ramp if it's needed, but really to stay on the path towards our destination, right? We're going to take detours. We're going to stop and see the giant ball of yarn along the way, but we're going to get where we're supposed to be going. And that's our job as leaders. And that is something that's very, very important for us to be reminded of. I conclude each day's morning announcements with a simple statement. It's from educator Jeff Howard. It's not my quote, but I use it all the time, and kids think it's mine. I say, let's get down to business, work hard to get smart, and make this a great day for learning, right? The idea that smart is not something that you are, it's something that you get is sometimes lost. And as leaders and educators, sometimes we think that we know it all because we've been through it all. But I guarantee you there'll be situations and circumstances that require us to admit we don't know.
Yeah, of course. We don't know all the answers. Of course not. But what we do
we've got to build that team mentality that if the leader doesn't know the answer, we got to value and trust everything that's going on around us to get us to the answer.
Well, we'll talk about that for a second. Let's just expand upon it because I think it's important. That's a listening teacher voice. It's a listening student voice. It's a listening parent voice about what great schools are and what they think they should entail. That's what you do when you start gathering information. And then you start looking at your strategic planning and you start looking about what's important and you look at your community and you tie it into your communities so that you see community growth. I tell you, I could go off on a tangent about growth in communities at this point in time, but at the end of the day, the value of your community is about every organization coming together and creating a cohesive roadmap about what tomorrow looks like. Now, because we deal with the hottest commodity out there, the kids of tomorrow. We want our kids to stay in our communities and be actively participant. Okay. And whether it's local government, whether it's local businesses, we want people to invest and stay where they are. Well, great schools do that, man. And I'll tell you, and I just, again, 30-year lens, looking back, so many great people that had an opportunity to help shape me to who I am right now. There's no doubt about that. Some really good superintendents. There's no doubt there. There's great teachers. There's great people at district office. Those relationships I will always keep close to the vest. And, those are very important for me. Chris, here, I got just two more quick questions for you. For the person coming into your seat, man, what would you say to that person to help maintain the success that is happening within your school now?
I think the biggest impact that can be made is something that you said a little earlier. It's be an active and engaged listener, right? Learn all that you can, understand what the climate is. Don't listen to opinions, listen to experiences and specific voices. And those voices are going to be from all the veteran educators who are here, all of the veteran students who are here, understand what the hopes and dreams of our incoming class are, and then filter your decision making through those experiences. That's probably the biggest bit of advice I can give anybody here, because this is a big time EQ building. All right, we generate and build IQ. That's our job as educators, but this is a very high level EQ building, and whoever comes in here needs to understand that right off the rip.
Yeah. And if you're looking across horizontally right now, we have two big voids to fill. The whole middle level experience here in Dudley Charlton that's been very, 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 very together, let's say, for a number of years is now open. So, and I would concur with you. And I would say really, really, really straight up that it's important that whoever comes in, they collaborate with one another, that they do a lot of listening, and obviously get to know your people. Get to know them before making any changes in anything, because the systems that are in place at the middle level here in our district are pretty solid. And
100%.
you know what? That would be the biggest piece of advice I could give to anybody there. Hey, Chris, again, I'm super proud of you, man. It's hard to step out of a comfort zone. And I know you probably feel the same about me. But like I always say, when one door closes, multiple doors open up. And quite frankly, that's where we're both at right now. We're at a part in our journey that we are going to be able to take all the experiences that we've had over the years, bring them to another school, look at systems, be a collaborative thinker, be a collaborative planner, and most importantly, ensure that student experiences continue to grow and that voice is elicited from all parties. And it just excites me. And I can't wait.
100%. Well, I think it's about time for us to wrap things up here, Dean. What do you say?
I say absolutely. I'll tell you what, DCRSD, you're always going to be in my heart. No doubt about that. We definitely love you guys. Again, we're only a phone call away. We will never turn our backs on the people that help make us who we are today. And most importantly, you know what, Chris, as a friend and a colleague, Unlock the Middle is going to take off and do some bigger and better things. I can't wait to work with you about that, or with that, I should say. And you know what? The sky's the limit. We're getting a little bit older, but I still feel as though I get that middle level mentality. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. Work is work.
Amen to that. Well, I can't say that any better. Dudley Middle is always going to have a strong place in my heart. Plus, I'm around as a parent for the next 2 years, so I'm not going anywhere. Y'all be good out there and unlock the middle land. We'll see you later this evening with Red Zone. I'll try. I've got a 7:30 start on my All-Star game tonight, so it's unlikely that I will be attending, but Dean and Josh will be on the air, and we take it from there, people. Let's go ahead and
we'll wrap it up, brother.
Up.
Absolute pleasure. And I'll tell you what, Chris, thank you so much. See you tonight at the Red Zone, like Chris said. Peace out. We'll be back in touch with you sometime soon. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you, DCRSD.